Hello and welcome, welcome. My name is Roger Philipp and I'm President and CEO of Roger CPA Review. A little background on myself, I worked at Deloitte & Touche, one of the big four accounting firms in downtown Los Angeles. I started teaching CPA Review about 25 plus years ago, including doing a lot of real estate investing as well. My company is now located in 5 different countries. I have over 30 employees and my job is basically to make accounting exciting. I'm here today to talk about setting goals and achieving success. And I want to talk to not only all of you still in college, but those of you that are just graduating, those that have been out in the real world working for 2, 5, 10, 20, 25 years like myself, because it's time to kind of stop and take a look at yourself. Look at where you've been, look at where you planned on going, and look at where you've ended up thus far. Because it's important to kind of take a look at yourself and say, am I heading in the right, healthy direction? So this is something that happens because when we graduate college, we have all these lofty goals. I'm going to take over the world. Then you get distracted by the day-to-day life. Occasionally you need to sit down and reevaluate and decide, are you heading in the direction you want to be in? First of all, when you look around you in life, you realize that there are so many choices to make and so many people that influence these decisions. For example, teachers, family, friends, coworkers, people you're in a relationship with. They have all so much influence. Now, it's no wonder that some people have difficulty just barely getting by, barely existing, not really heading in any positive directions. Others are living healthy, happy, well-balanced, meaningful lives. And you sit and you ask yourself, what do these people have that the other people don't have? And the answer to that is what? Goals. So I guess what that means is we need to sit down and establish some goals. So I looked up the definition of goals in the Webster's dictionary, like they still exist and anyone uses a dictionary. But the definition was goal, a noun, the end towards which effort is directed. That means you take all this energy, all this effort, you direct it towards an end. That is considered a goal. So what it tells us is, gee, I guess we need to establish some goals, right? But it says we need to establish both short-term and long-term goals. Now, long-term goals, those help to establish the direction that we're heading in. So for example, when I graduated college, I started working at Deloitte & Touche, one of the big four, and I said, you know, my goal is to be a partner at this big four accounting firm. So that was my long-term goal. The short-term goals, those are the baby steps. Those are the stepping stones to accomplishing your long-term goals. There was a movie years ago called What About Bob? And it was with Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss. And Bill Murray was a little crazy, having trouble dealing with day-to-day life. So he went to the psychiatrist and Richard Dreyfuss basically said, you know, life's overwhelming. Break it down into baby steps. So he would say baby step through life, baby step through this, and so on. And that's how he took this overwhelming thing called life and made it manageable. That's what your short-term goals are. Those are baby steps to accomplishing your long-term. So for me, my goal was to become a partner at an accounting firm, or whether it's a partner at a law firm, whatever it is. You say, okay, how do I get there? First, I've got to get into college. Then I've got to get into the right major. Then I've got to get into the right classes. Then I have to get involved in things like the Accounting Association, Beta Alpha Psi, whatever clubs relate to that topic. Then I need to meet the people that do the hiring. I need to get an internship. I need to get an interview. I need to get a job. Then once I get in the firm, I need to work my way up to make partner. So the short-term goals are the baby steps. The long-term goals, that helps to establish the direction that you're heading in. Now, it's important to realize, don't fall into the trap into thinking that you only need to set goals in one area. One of my friends did that. He set career goals. He goes, I'm going to have a great career. And he did, right? A fabulous career, made a lot of money. But guess what? He was divorced 3 times. He was in poor physical condition. He has kids that he never saw. Okay? So all of a sudden you're like, well, part of my life is great, other parts are falling apart. So it's important to realize that you need to have a well-balanced life. You need to set both personal and professional goals. You need to set them in that area in order to have a good balanced life. Now we view goals as a pyramid. Like when I get to the top of the pyramid, woohoo, then I'll be successful. My goal is to make $100,000 a year. I make $100,000 a year. I made it. But guess what? Life is shallow if you don't set goals in a variety of areas. So I've set a whole bunch of different areas as far as goal setting. And what I said is you've got career versus job, financial goals, physical goals, mental, family, and spiritual. So these are areas of goal setting that you really want to look at in order to have what I consider to be a well-balanced life, both personally and professionally as well. So when we look at goals, the first one here talks about career versus job. Now, what is career versus job? Career is what you're going to be doing for 40, 50, 60 hours a week. A job, that's something you did while you were in school to get you to this point. So I had a job, I was working part-time, this, that, and the other. That was a job. This is a career. This is something that it's important you're passionate about because you're going to spend a lot of hours doing this. For example, in my area of accounting, whether it's public accounting or private accounting or governmental accounting, you need to be passionate about what it is you're doing. You need to feel challenged at work. You need to feel like you're working towards something. Otherwise, if you're just working for a paycheck, they can't possibly pay you enough to keep you happy. Yes, you can buy a lot of substitutes, right? But I realized for me that I could keep working, I could make partner, I could make $1 million a year. And guess what? The more I would work, the more frustrated I'd be, the more toys. And I've seen this in life. People make more money, they buy an extra house, a nicer car, a nicer this, that, and the other. All of a sudden you get this rat trap, where you've got to work harder in order to make money to cover these expenses, which are the bills for the stuff you bought to compensate for the lack of happiness and feeling complete. So therefore, with career, really look at it. Think about how do you want to spend your working life. Think about what makes you passionate, what makes you fulfilled. I remember I had this girlfriend. Every Sunday she would get depressed. She's like, oh my gosh, Saturday was great, Friday night we partied, guess what, it's Sunday, okay, I've got to psychologically get ready for the week, right? It was depressing. It was like Sunday was wasted. Why? Because she hated her job, so she had 5 days of working for the weekends, right? They have all these songs out like that. She hated it. She was miserable. Guess what? That's why she's an ex. But the point is, she was trying to figure out what it is I need to do, but she wasn't passionate about what she needed to do, so that's what we're talking about. So that's why with career, you'll notice, as this slide shows you, the more you work, the more you kind of grow into your chair, right? Ticking and tying and footing and cross-footing. But again, realize it's career versus job. As far as financial, ka-ching, right? How much money do you need? Right? I need to be lifestyles of the rich and famous, or the Trump, or TMZ, right? I want them following the brand. That's rich. For some of us in college, it's getting up in the morning and having a car that starts. Woohoo! My car starts. I'm going to make it to class today. So it's all relative. So with money, think about how much is enough. One of the things with money shouldn't be a goal. Money should be a byproduct. What does that mean? Generally speaking, if you're good at what you do, the money will follow. But if you do something strictly for the money, they can't possibly pay you enough to keep you satisfied with what it is you're doing. So that's why, again, it's important to say, if money is really important, let me pick a career path that does pay down the road, but let me make sure that if I don't enjoy my job and I'm only doing it for the money, they can't possibly pay you enough. So keep that in mind. Physical goals, right? As you can see, I used to be in great physical condition. Physical condition, what that says is, okay, what kind of physical condition do I want to be in? With myself, I'm traveling a lot. As I said, I'm in 5 different countries. I'm all over the world. I'm all over the country. I'm giving presentations, speeches, and so on. So I'm out there and I'm giving it all my energy, and I get home and I'm kind of buzzing late at night. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting there trying to relax my brain. So at 2, 3 in the morning, I'm flipping channels on TV. And what's on TV? Infomercials. So I said, okay, I want to get in good physical condition. I don't have time to go to the gym all the time. So what do you think I bought? Right? And I've had people go, spray on hair. I'm like, thanks a lot. Or the George Foreman grill. What I bought was this juicer. Right? And I remember who was some Jack Elaine or something. I think he lived to be like 180 years old. But I bought a juicer because I said, you know what? I don't have time to eat well. I come home late. I eat a microwave dinner. So let's get a juicer. So I bought the carrots and I bought the apples and I ground and I made juice. Delicious, right? You ever try to clean one of those? Right, that's a lot. I don't think so. So anyway, at least it was a good plan, but I realized, all right. But the point is, you need to make it a priority. If you're just working and you're trying to make money, but you're not taking care of yourself physically, you're out of balance. So you need to work that in, whether it's getting up early, half hour early, going for a walk, whether it's getting a life cycle at home, whether it's joining a gym. So many people join a gym and they never go. Okay, it defeats the purpose. Spend the money on a bicycle. I've seen a commercial lately about some lady, and she's trying to figure out her exercise program. She tries everything, pole dancing and jogging and biking and this and that. And it's like, find whatever it is, but blend it into your life. That's what's important. Mental. With mental, right? Look at that. See how the brain goes. Mental. What areas do you want to grow in? What is going to be interesting for you? So, for example, what's going to help you also accomplish your professional goals? I travel a lot, so I might do foreign languages. Bonjour, comment ça va? Sí, por supuesto, muy importante. Ja, ich will das machen. So I might study languages, or I might listen to books on tape, or, for example, I'll listen to some radiotherapy, all right? Because we could all use that. The point is, while you're downtime, figure out what it is you want to do. For me now, I'm traveling all the time. You got your phone with you. What's another nice things? I can log on and I can start reading the newspaper while I'm traveling. So areas where, again, mental. Family. With family, you can see here what a lovely family I have, right? Beautiful. We all have the same hairdos. With family, think about, do you want a family, right? In other words, you're working so hard, all of a sudden, people's lives go by. They're 30, 35, 38, and they're going, oh my gosh, my time clock is ticking. What happened to my life? So you've got to plan it throughout. Otherwise, life just whizzes right past you, right? Just flies by. One of my brothers, for example, he's a doctor. Makes a lot of money. Great career, a lot of money. Financial, he's single. Get to the number. But he's a doctor. Worked so many hours, didn't have as much time to spend with his kid, for example. Now he's slowed down a little bit. And actually, a recent study that I saw was interesting. They interviewed a lot of doctors, and they found that a lot of doctors were taking more time off and working fewer hours because they said that they would talk to these people on their deathbed, and they never had someone on their deathbed say, gee, I wish I had spent more hours in the office. Gee, I wish I had worked more hours. No, they said, I wish I would have married. I wish I would have traveled. I wish I would have learned languages or studied philosophy, or, so at the end of your life, you're checking out. It's important to kind of look ahead. And I'll talk about this later, but look ahead, forecast, project, and say, what does the end look like? Here I am today. What do I want to accomplish between now and then? Because time, it just keeps ticking by. Your money buys time, but your time don't buy money. Right? No, I'm sorry. Your time buys money, right? But your money don't buy time. So your time, you're working, that brings in money. But that money doesn't buy more time on the end of your life. That's why you have to have that balance. So think about that. For me, family. I said 20s, 30s, I don't want a family. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get a good career foundation. I'm going to travel the world. I used to take a backpack and I would go as like a courier where I would get like a $200 flight in and out of a country like Thailand, and I would have 2 to 4 weeks to just travel. So I'd have a backpack, and back then we didn't have computers, so I had the Lonely Planet book or Let's Go, whatever. And I would travel and just see the world, and it was great. So I did that in my 20s and my 30s. All of a sudden, late 30s, I'm like, hey, this inventory's getting old. It'd be time to check out. So that's when I made it a goal. I said, I want to settle down. I went, found someone with what I thought would be a good similar religious background, settled down, had my 2.75 kids, and so on. So the point is, it was part of my plan. It was part of my goal. But had I not done that, I could easily have been that 65-year-old guy sitting in the bar with a 22-year-old, and it sounds great, but I realized that life was ticking by, and I wasn't wasting their time. I was wasting my time. So again, I had to suddenly make it a goal to at some point focus in on my goal was to have a family. Let me make that a priority. Let me focus in on do that. Finally, spirituality. Right, spirituality. What is spirituality? That says what makes you feel complete. Volunteerism, for example. Another one of my brothers, he's a PhD in math education at San Diego State. He was in the Peace Corps in Africa. He was in the Peace Corps, built libraries, and taught English and all that. Then he also was a big brother. These are great things, right? This is great for it made him feel complete, spiritual. Now, did it help him with career? No. Did it help him with financial? No. He made like $200 a month. But it helped him to feel complete as a human being here on this earth in looking at these areas of goals. So that's why it's so important to really address all these different goals. Now, what does addressing all these goals mean? It means addressing all these goals in career, family, physical, mental, spiritual, because all of those are areas that you want to grow in. So in order to have a good, what we call balanced life, it's important to address all those areas. Now, I always tell people, be selfish. Go for what you want. Don't do this for somebody else. I teach people how to pass this rigorous exam called the CPA exam. It's a 14-hour exam. I tell people, don't become a CPA because, why do you want to be a CPA? Well, my grandpa's a CPA, my dad's a CPA, my mom's, I think I'll be a CPA. You're never going to pass the exam. it takes 400 hours of prep time, you're not going to do it if you're doing it for someone else. Do it for you. Make sure that whatever it is you're heading towards, whatever you're addressing, you're doing it for the right reason. Now, here's a reminder, you may not want to hear this, but life is not a beer commercial. Have you ever watched a beer commercial, right? They have everything at the same time. They have a great family, they're spiritual, they're volunteering time, they're healthy, they're beautiful, they're young, they have money, they have everything, right? That's like not reality. What is reality? Reality is a trip to a salad bar, right? You ever been to a salad bar? Remember that place? Sizzler. It's like this. You get a plate this big. That's it. And you go, hey, look at all these goals. Let me fill my plate. I'll take some career. I'll take a little physical, work out. Whoop, my plate is full. So really, life is a balancing act. You need to figure out how to balance it between all these different areas of goal setting because you can't necessarily have it all at the same time. It's important to look at that and say, what do I need to do in order to feel complete in my life? That's why it's a balancing act. For me, when I was younger, I said, you know what? I don't have time for family. Let me be selfish. Let me work on career. Let me work on spirituality. Let me travel all over the world. Let me grow mentally. Let me get exposure to the world. Let me do that now because later on it ain't going to happen, right? I have kids now. I realize the next 20 years are shot, right? It's for them. It's all about, and then after that, great. I'll be wheeling around my wheelchair. I'll see the world. Guess what? I already saw the world. I did it when in my 20s and 30s. Now it's time to settle down. So again, but this is all a plan. Life doesn't just happen. Life can be a plan. You are in control of it, right? This is your one life, and maybe you've got more depending on what religion you are, but I believe this is it. I hope I'm wrong, and I come back 9 more times, that'll be awesome. But if not, hey, at least I did it right the first time. That's what you need to keep in mind. That's what you need to be thinking about. Now, we now understand the areas of goal setting. The question is, how do you set these goals? How do I set these goals? The first thing is what I like to say, reflection. Reflect. That's your real head stuff. That's where you kind of daydream and you say, okay, where do I see myself 1 year, 5 years, 10, 20, 30 years down the road? Because it's important to kind of look down the road. And I have a lot of female friends in their mid to late 30s. And they're sitting there and they're going, I really want to have a family. And I say, okay, well, here you are at 36. Picture 46. What does 46 look like? Are you married? Are you working full time? Are you a single parent? What does that picture look like? So in other words, look ahead, define that picture, and then back into today. And then figure out how to get there. Because life is like climbing up a tree. Right? You've got so many different branches, so many different choices to make. None of them are necessarily wrong choices. It's just a matter of what choice do I want to make? You're in control of those choices. Don't let those choices control you. So what does that mean? It means that if you're looking out and this friend of mine who's 38, 39, 40, knocking on the door time-wise, saying, oh, my clock's ticking. It's like, okay, you want to have a kid, you want to settle down, but you're dating this guy for 3 years who has no desire to get married. Maybe it's a waste of not his time, but your time. Your clock's ticking. So you've got to start from today, reflect and say, okay, what does this look like down the road? What does it mean for me? Crystallization means crystallize it. It means identify the picture. Here's what the picture is. Here's what the picture says. What is the picture? Long-term goal, being a partner at a firm. Short-term, getting into the right school, the right classes, meeting the right teachers, meeting the right recruiters, doing the schmoozing. Networking. Networking is what? Meeting people in order to further your career, for example. You build that network. That's something to accomplish that goal. You've got to work on that. Formalization means write them down. Write these goals down and then set them down. Go off and do something else. Periodically pick them up and look at it and say, hey, does this goal still sound like the same goal that I want to accomplish? Because life changes. My goal was to become a partner at this firm. You know what? I decided to do something else. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So look at that. Evaluation. Evaluation means picking up that piece of paper again and looking at it and evaluating it and saying, does this goal still sound attainable? Does it still sound like something I want to do? One of my friends, every New Year's Eve, he and his wife sit down and they look at their list of goals and they say, these were the goals for the year. Here's what we did. Here's what we didn't accomplish. Now let's take the list and adjust it. Let's update it. Let's redirect it for the next and upcoming year, for short term, for long term, to make sure we're still heading in that healthy, positive direction. Because again, you get these distractors in life. One of my friends had this old Porsche in his garage. He's like, I'm going to fix this thing up. I'm going to fix this thing up. And every time he went in the garage, it was like, ugh. And he had it for years. And it just gets in the way. It depresses you. It's like, I have so much. And all of a sudden, he finally got rid of it. oh, it was like a weight off his shoulders. And we all have those things. I'll talk about to-do lists later, but we all have these to-do lists where these things go from list to list to list to list. Finally, you just cross them off and go, it's not worth it, right? Somebody gave me a bad check, $75, it bounced, I'm going to sue you in small claims court. Small claims. Finally, I go, you know what, the stress, I'm just going to write it off. Bad debt expense, right? Debit expense, credit allowance. The point is, what am I going to do? So that's what you have to do as far as figuring out how we're going to look at it. Modification. Modification says eliminate those that are not important. Get rid of those. Modify it, the ones you want to keep, modify it, the ones you don't. And something I teach in accounting is called the cost-benefit relationship. Make sure the cost of obtaining that does not outweigh the benefit. Because if it costs you more, it's not worth it. Maybe it's time to find something else to focus in on. So we've talked about how to set them. Now, how do you achieve your goals? First of all, develop an action plan. And with an action plan that says, how am I going to get from here to there? Let me establish a reasonable timetable. Now, in developing an action plan, that says, okay, do I really still want to be a partner at that accounting firm? Do I still want to be a partner in this law firm? How important is it? Now, you have to have a plan. And I'll sit down, I'll meet people, and I'll say, what is your goal? My goal is to be rich. My goal is to be a partner. I say, great, that's a great goal. What is your plan? And they go, I don't really have a plan. Very important. Goals without a plan are merely wishes. Let me say that again. Goals without a plan, they're merely wishes. Because people say, gee, I want to be rich. Okay, well, I wish I were rich. That's great. You may as well say, I wish I were rich and blow one of those, because you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it without a plan. So you've got to sit down and make a plan. Just like people say, you're lucky. You're lucky. The definition of luck, I read this somewhere, I forgot where, it says when preparedness meets opportunity. When you're prepared and the opportunity arises and you take advantage of it, you're successful. That's what people say, well, you're lucky. No, you're right time, right place, but you were also ready for it. You were willing to take that risk. Awesome job, that's great. But again, it's important to look at that and say, okay, what do I need to do? But goals without a plan are merely wishes. Also, remind yourself of the goals. Periodically remind yourself of the goals. In other words, a progress report. Evaluate the timetable. Reread these things and say, how am I doing? For me, as I said, my goal was to become a partner at a big firm. So I went into there, studied accounting, graduated, got a job, became a CPA. Then I said, then I started teaching CPA review. I started helping people accomplish their goals. I took accounting, which isn't always that exciting, and made it interesting and gave it energy and passion. And then along the way, I started acquiring investments in real estate and stocks. And all of a sudden, I started building a portfolio. And all of a sudden, I'm making these plans. So I'm saying, let me buy an investment property. I'll lose a little bit each month, but guess what? Over the long term, things will appreciate. If I need money, there it is. Let me go. So all of these, you're investing in your future. Nothing, these overnight get-rich schemes, they don't work, right? It's exciting because it's not going to happen. You've got to make a plan. And I know a lot of us, we look back and say, look where I am. And you know what? There was a radiotherapist years ago. His name was Dr. David Viscott. And he used to say, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. What does that mean? It means, you know what? This is where you are today. Where you go tomorrow is totally up to you. Where you were yesterday, that's in the past. Let's look in the future. So you're exactly where you're supposed to be. What you're going to do with the next 1, 5, 10, 20, 40 years of your life is totally up to you. But it's a matter of how do I want to step forward? So that's where you need to sit down and evaluate the timetable and make revisions to that. Now, one of the things that you need to remember is life gets distracting. Therefore, how can I become more efficient in my day-to-day life? Because I have these great goals. Every day I head to my office, I have great goals, and all of a sudden what happens? I've got a to-do list, and oh my gosh, I get overwhelmed. So don't lose sight of the direction you're heading in. What does that mean? Life changes dramatically, right? Do you still want to accomplish those goals? So use of time savers, for example, calendars, right? We all have calendars, whether it's on our phones, whether it's on our Outlook. So use the calendar. Someone calls me and says, Roger, can you give a presentation in New York? Can you give a presentation in Salt Lake City? I say, you know what? Send me an email. Let me check my calendar. Because I don't commit to anything until I check because I don't know. Because that's how I stay organized. It's important to be responsible in life. It's important to be organized. It's important that people can rely on you. When you say you're going to do something, you've got to be able to do it. That's how you become successful in life. Workspace. Keep your workspace clean. That means when you show up in the morning, your desk is nice. At the end of the day, it's busy. You know what? Tidy everything up. So when you come in, you start with a clean work area, a clean space, a clean mind. My grandmother, I miss her. She was awesome. One of them, both of them were great, but one of them said specifically she had such a messy place, but she said there's organization within my disorganization. And it was true. I mean, she could find a paper here and there. But the key is keep a clean workspace, whether it's a home office, whether it's your actual office. Technology, use it. Your computers, your personal digital assistants, PDAs. You know, the thing is we're now reachable 24/7, which is great. I mean, there's so much I get done now because of the internet, because of what exists. There's also the fact that I'm never ending my job, right? 24/7 I'm working. I was in Mexico with the family. All of a sudden we've got internet. What does that mean? You never get away from it. So it's good and it's bad, but it also kind of keeps you in touch. Otherwise, when I leave for vacation for a week and come back, it takes me 4 months to catch up. And the next time I don't even want to go on vacation. So use that wisely as well. Lists. I love lists. All right. I have checklists. I have a to-do list in my Outlook calendar every day. I have a to-do list. I add stuff to it. I take stuff off. I move it. It's the first thing I check to see what I've got to do. Same thing with when you're running errands, right? I love lists. If I've got to run errands, I used to live in Los Angeles, crazy traffic. So I would plan it against traffic and I would plan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I always did my list in the order that I had to head in, right? That's how I do. My wife, oh, I'm just going to run errands, right? And I'm like, you know, try to be Mr. Organized. Well, let me see your list. Let me help you organize it. Bad move, right? Let her run her own list. But the point is, that list is so important because if I can save a few minutes here and a few minutes there, that adds up. You only get 168 hours a week. It's up to you to choose how you're going to use those hours. That's why in this day-to-day use of time savers, it will benefit you in making sure you're making the most efficient use of your time. It's important, as I said, to set goals. Be selfish, right? Like this little kid here, the cake's all for me. Be selfish, but also don't limit yourself. What that means is keep the big picture in mind, because if it's important and you work hard, it too will happen. We are our worst critics. And here's an example. I was in Los Angeles and I was a keynote speaker at a banquet and I gave this speech and this kid came up and he says, oh my gosh, that was so energetic and so dynamic. I could never do that. I'm so shy. And I said, you're 20 years old. Don't limit yourself. Most of the people in this room don't even know you. And you come off and say, well, I'm kind of shy and I'm quiet. You know, hi, I'm Roger. I'm really self-confident. You never get a job that way, right? You got to come off as self-confident, good communication, good handshake, good eye contact, and so on. And I said, look, you're only going to live 60 or 70 more years. So maybe you've been shy for the first 20, but guess what? Boom, snap out of it, right? For the next 60 years, you're going to be Mr. Outgoing. You're going to have confidence. You can become whatever it is you want to become, right? I feel like a religious, yes, heal, right? But the truth is, you can become whatever you want to become. It's up to you. Don't limit yourself. Don't be your worst critic because you're sitting there labeling yourself. That's never going to happen. You're never going to be successful that way. Finally, life is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. What that means is you need to enjoy yourself. You need to enjoy your time here while you're here on earth. So what that means is if you're not happy along the way, you know, life is a journey. It's not just a destination. We're traveling through life. It's a great journey. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the time. What does that mean? It means set goals in all those different areas, whether it's family, mental, spiritual, career, all those different areas. Set goals in all those areas. That way you can make sure that you too are enjoying your life. Or as a singer, James Taylor, he has this great song. It says, the secret of life is enjoying the passage of time. What does that mean? The secret of it means time's going to keep ticking by. The secret of life is to enjoy that time. So that means it's up to you to set some goals in life. Set goals, make a plan, and you too will be a success in life. Thank you very much for your time.